All right, gang, today we're going to make some jump up basses. Hey, so jump up basses keep coming up as a request. So I wanted to do a basic jump up bass tutorial. So here it is. We're going to be using Serum and we're going to make a patch which can kind of become all sorts of different jump up basses. You'll see when we get there. Now this patch, along with a whole bunch of others I've made on other videos, is going to be up on my Patreon. You'll be able to get it from there if you just want to download the patch directly. Otherwise, let's get into it. All right, so we are going to start with a Serum, and luckily for us, the init patch is what we need. It's a sawtooth. It sounds like this. So nice and tidy. What we're going to do is turn on oscillator B, and we're going to bring the level all the way down so we don't hear it. And we're just going to choose from the digital shapes Harmonic Series. Now, Harmonic Series is a series of sine waves that go up through the Harmonic Series all the way up to what? 24th harmonic. And it's really useful for FM and for creating kind of rich sounds based off the Harmonic Series. What we're going to do is use FM from B, and that's going to FM our saw with this sine wave over here. So I'm going to bring up the amount and dial it in. In here it's doing something, and the magic happens when we bring up the wavetable position. Now you might already recognize that sound from various places. Let's put it on somewhere in the middle. The things that we want to do to really give this a bit of oomph is use an LFO. So we're going to put that on the cutoff for our filter, and we're going to enable the filter. And we're going to set this to trigger mode so that we trigger the LFO each time that we push a key. And maybe we'll make this LFO a little bit shorter and a little bit longer. Don't worry, we're going to come back to the LFO in a second. That's sounding pretty good. We can dial in the cutoff amount. It really comes down to taste and exactly what sort of sound you're trying to get here. Let's add some distortion. So we're going to the effects tab, distortion. Now, personally, I'm really loving this 0 square at the moment, which, you know, might work for you, might not. You hear how much louder and grittier it makes the sound, but also makes it like a fair bit noisier, which we can kind of deal with a little bit by using another filter. And we'll put the same LFO on, so this filter follows the same movement, and see what that sounds like. So that's certainly cleaned it up a lot. We can use a steeper filter and maybe move less. And so now we've got a pretty clean kind of sound out of that. Now you'll notice if I bring up an EQ that there's almost no bottom end in this. We've got all these lovely harmonics, which is what we want, and they're really the critical part of the sound. But if we go back to the oscillators and we enable the sub oscillator, now we've got some subs, but it's not moving. We can probably even go an octave down. Now that we've dropped an octave in our note, we can push the harmonics up. Oh, we're getting somewhere. But you notice the sub isn't moving with the sound. Let's put the LFO on the level, bring the level down a fair bit and bring up the amount. So now our LFO is causing the harmonic content of the sound to change with the filters into the distortion with the filter on the end, and it's causing the sub to follow that movement. So we've got one control which controls all different parts of the sound. So we can make different articulations like this. We could change the curves, and we could change the timing to get all sorts of different sounds. And obviously wavetable position makes it screechier as we go up. And if you haven't heard sounds like that lately, then you're not listening to a lot of drum and bass. But that's how you go about getting that sound. It's pretty straightforward. What we're doing is we're using FM on the Harmonic Series on a sawtooth with a couple of filters, a whole bunch of distortion. We can increase the distortion even. think it sounds good about there. And then we've added a sub. Now the sub, we can kind of use that to push out all of the upper harmonic content, or we can let more through. So it's really a balancing act of how loud you need your sub versus how much upper harmonic content you want to let through. And you can kind of use that interplay as a sound design technique. Now, the handy macros to have would be the wavetable position. So let's call this WT pos. And then the filter cutoffs, let's bring them down a little bit. And we'll call this filter so that we can bring it all the way open. And we're going to do the same on this filter. We'll bring it down a bit and we'll map it there. So now we've got two different modulation options. And we can kind of dial those in a little bit more if we wanted to, or we can just have a bit of fun experimenting with this LFO shape. Cool. And so now we've got two different knobs which control a whole bunch of different parameters and give us a whole bunch of different sounds. And so from there, it's pretty easy to come up with a bass line that's going to be interesting. Let's quickly do one. And here we go. I have written a little drum loop and a little bass line, and then I've duplicated our Serum, and I've used a slightly different LFO rate on this setting to create a little bass trill at the end. So here's what I've landed on. This is just a few minutes work. You can do the same. It's very straightforward. So there you go. Pretty much all the like classic jump up sounds that I've ever heard have been that same technique, just FMing a saw. It's really straightforward. Throw it through heaps of distortion and then modulate the LFOs. You might need to use some filtering to clean up the sound a little bit. If you are using so much distortion, you start to get that really nice ripping, crackling kind of harmonics. So yeah, use some filtering if you need to, just kind of like rein the distortion back in a bit in places. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward sound. It's pretty easy to get hold of, and you've got a lot of articulation possibilities by just controlling that one LFO shape to make it longer or shorter or come in faster or decay slower, or, you know, all sorts of things you can think of there. And some spatial effects don't go astray, like a bit of reverb and delay, but I've left those off in this case just to show you the raw sound. All right, so that's my guide to making jump up basses. It's the simplest process I've found yet to get that exact screechy sound. If you're trying to replicate something that you've heard somewhere else, that's probably the easiest way to get really into the ballpark. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.